Mr. Speaker, earlier in this chamber, there was a bit of back and forth about one of the most famous military units to ever exist. Famously known as the Red Tails, the first African-American military pilots tested their wings in the skies over Tuskegee, Alabama. The Tuskegee Airmen were officially initiated into the U.S. Armed Forces on February 19, 1942. The Tuskegee Airmen were the first African-American military aviators in the United States Armed Forces. During World War II, black Americans in many U.S. states were still subject to Jim Crow laws, and the military was racially segregated, as was much of the federal government. The Tuskegee Airmen were subject to discrimination both within and outside of the Army. The racially motivated rejections of World War I African-American recruits sparked more than 2 decades of advocacy who wished to enlist and train as military aviators. The effort was led by prominent civil rights leaders such as Walter White of the NAACP, labor union leader A. Philip Randolph, and Judge William H. Haste. Finally, on April 3, 1939, Appropriations Bill Public Law 18 was passed by Congress, containing an amendment by Senator Harry Schwartz designating funds for training African-American pilots. In June 1941, the 99th Pursuit Squadron was transferred to Tuskegee, Alabama, and designated as the only black flying unit within the country, but yet did not have pilots. The famous airmen were actually trained at 5 airfields surrounding Tuskegee University, formerly the Tuskegee Institute: Greele, Kennedy, Moton, Shorter, and Tuskegee Army Airfield. The flying unit consisted of 47 officers and 429 enlisted men, and was backed by an entire service arm. On July 19, 1941, 13 individuals made up the first class of aviation cadets when they entered pre-flight training at Tuskegee University. In all, 992 pilots were trained in Tuskegee from 1941 to 1946. 355 were deployed overseas and 84 lost their lives. The toll included 68 pilots killed in action, 84 accidents, and 12 killed in training and non-combat missions, 32 captured as prisoners of war. The Tuskegee Airmen were credited by higher command with the following accomplishments: 1,578 combat missions, 1,267 for the 12th Air Force and 311 for the 15th Air Force. 179 bomber escort missions with a great record of protection, losing bombers on only 7 missions and only totaling 27 aircraft. 112 enemy aircraft destroyed in the air, another 150 on the ground. Mr. Speaker, during my time of service, I had the high honor of having Tuskegee Airmen fly on my aircraft to various air shows and dignity functions. They were always kind, gracious men that showed character and distinction earned by breaking barriers to service in their country. Mr. Speaker, I hope it's the will of the body as we rise and honor the Tuskegee Airmen as we celebrate their inclusion officially into the Armed Forces of the United States on this momentous anniversary 83 years ago today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.